What's up? In this simple video, I'll be showing you I can easily edit this outdoor image when it comes to Photoshop. So in this, we're going to be learning how to retouch the image and also how to do color grading, and finally how to save the image. And in case you want to download the raw image file along with this tutorial, simply like this very video and don't forget to check for the link in the description of this very video, but ensure that you first of all like the video. So this is the image after importing it, and it's going to be opened up in the camera raw filter since it is a raw file. So for this, I'll simply come and I'll drop the highlights down to recover information in the dress, and I'll do the same simply for the whites. I'll open up the shadows of this image because I want to recover even some information within the background area, and I'll take the black slightly. Then I'll simply come to my contrast and add contrast to this image to around 7 and open up the exposure of this very image. So after doing that, I'll slightly warm up the image to around 5300 kelvins and go straight into the color correction or color grading in Camera Raw. So this is the first step for the color grading process. So for this, I just want to play around with the hue, saturation, and luminance values. So hue is changing the color. You can change the greens to look like the yellows or make the yellows more like the green. And you can understand saturation as the intensity of a given color. You can increase the intensity of the yellows or reduce on the intensity of the yellows in the image regarding any colors that you have in the photo that you're trying to edit. Luminance is the brightness level of a given color. So after understanding how all those are going to be affecting the image, simply we're just going to color this image to our liking. So just play around with the hue and make the yellows towards the green and make the greens like the aquas to make the greens pop. Then I'll come to the luminance and brighten up the greens in the background just like that, so the image can have a little bit of life to it. So after I've done that, I'll simply come back to the saturation and slightly reduce on the intensity or the saturation of the greens in this case. So you can see the before and after so far. So after that, I'll simply come down to my calibration panel and simply come the blue primary and make the image pop a little bit more. So you can see before, after. So after that, I'm going to come and open the image in Photoshop for us to do the next adjustments like skin retouching and color grading. So right now we are in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, we're going to first of all do the skin retouching using frequency separation. So come the background layer and press Ctrl J, or you can press Command J twice. Double click to rename that to color, and the upper layer is going to be the texture layer. So after doing that, we're simply going to come select the color layer and turn off the texture layer. Simply come to filter, blur, come to Gaussian blur. So click on an area especially on the face, because the face usually has more skin details, and left click and start dragging up the radius slider and stop at the point whereby the details or the textures on the skin are just starting to disappear. So click OK. Select the texture layer and click or activate it. Then come to image, come to apply image. So when it comes to apply image, simply the source is the name of the photo that you're trying to edit. Layer, select the color layer. Then blending has to be added because we are editing a 16-bit image. You can start, we have 16 right there. And opacity 100%, the scale is to offset to 0, and simply turn on the invert option. In case you are editing an 8-bit image, make sure you use the blending of subtract, the scale is to offset 128, and make sure invert is not turned on, and you'll have basically the same result. So for my case, I'll revert the settings to 16-bit settings. Click OK, change the blend mode from normal to linear light and select both layers. Then press Ctrl G, or can press Command G on the keyboard, group these layers. Open up the group and select the color layer, turn off the texture layer. Then you're going to come to the brushes, right click and get the mixer brush tool. And after selecting the mixer brush tool, set it, clean brush, and the second option that says clean brush after each stroke is selected. With the weight of 9%, load 75, mix at 90, flat 100%. Make sure sample all layers is not turned on, and it's time to blend the transitions within the skin. So how to blend? We increase on the size of the brush with the low frequency layer selected and start brushing to blend. So how do you brush? Left click and hold down, and you drag to blend colors. Mix the highlights alone, midtones alone, and the shadows alone. And while these colors are transitioning from one color to another, you can use a relatively small brush and you blend those transitions quite well. So to increase or reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool, you can use the open and close bracket keys on the keyboard to play around with different sizes of the mixer brush tool. So the open and close square bracket keys on the keyboard are either going to increase or reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool depending on how big the area you're trying to work on. So make sure you blend all these particular areas and you smoothen the skin. So we are going to zoom in slightly by using Command plus on the keyboard, or you can use Control plus on the keyboard to zoom in. And for the first area, I'm just going to blend just like that. But as you're doing all this, make sure you are using a small brush size to be precise with the blending process. Reduce on the size and continue working and blending. So as you're blending, make sure you follow the way light is falling on the model's skin so that you can keep and maintain the original shape of her body structures. So I'm just going to be doing this. So you can see I'm not zooming all the in, because when I retouch in this way, I can see where to blend and where not to blend whenever I'm trying to use the mixer brush tool. So right now I'm done blending. So I'll reduce on the size of the brush by using the bracket keys and continue working and blending on each and every area that has or contains skin tones in this very image. So come to the lower part of the body. Remember, we are doing skin retouching, so ensure that you are retouching the overall body or the whole body to keep and get better results. So for the legs, you can see the thigh is moving in an up down direction, so I'll also move my brush strokes in this kind of direction so that I can follow the lighting pattern on our subject's legs. So select or turn on the texture layer to see what you have been able to do. Command minus to zoom out. So the next step is going to be removing the imperfections regarding. So I'm just going to first of all analyze the image. So for areas that you may not have worked on, you can even work with the texture layer turned on, but make sure sample areas is not turned on or is not checked in this case. So after that, I've blended these areas. So select the texture layer and now come and simply get the clone stamp tool. Make sure the mode is set to normal, opacity in the flat 100%. Make sure aligned is checked and the sample is set to current layer. So this time around, I'm going to simply zoom in by using Command plus on the keyboard. You can use Control plus on the keyboard and reduce on the size of the clone stamp tool by using the square bracket keys on the keyboard. So to remove this pimple, hold on the Option key on the keyboard, Option for mark. Then whenever I mention Option and you're using Windows, simply take it in mind that it is the alternate key on the keyboard or Alt. So Option and left click on the key area near the pimple and left click once again over the pimple to replace it with clean skin. So Option, left click to sample and release the Option button and left click once again to replace the pimple or the blemish with clean skin. So this is what I'm going to do for the rest of the pimples or blemishes on the model's skin. And this is going to smoothen the skin details and make the image even better and even stand out even more. So I'm doing skin retouching, and skin retouching can't be any complete without this step for blemish removal. So remember, we have to clear out and remove majority of the pimples or skin imperfections like blemishes, acne, and other forms of skin textures that are not meant to be on the skin naturally. Control minus to zoom out. So after we have worked on the skin and doing the skin retouching, we are going to close the group and you can see before after. So after that, we're just going to work on the colors on the skin, and this is known as skin tone corrections or color grading. So you're going to create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Control E for Windows or for PC. Then come and create a new empty layer and select this layer that we created initially before. Come to select and come to subject, and we're going to select the subject in this case automatically. So after that, come back to this empty layer that we created, change the blend mode from normal to color. Then come to the brushes, right click and get the brush tool. And for settings, make sure it is soft round brush. The mode is normal, opacity at 100%, flat 100%. And we just want to sample color on the skin that we want the rest of the skin to look like. So for this case, I'm just going to sample from the face area because all these areas have a color cast from her dress. So I'll just zoom in and I sample from the face. So which color is favorable for this? I'm just going to hold an Option key on the keyboard or hold down the alternate key on the keyboard and left click to sample color, Ctrl minus to zoom out and reduce on the size of the brush. Remember, you have to be selected on this empty layer that we created initially before. I'll just come and start painting. So don't mind if the color is looking overdone or too much or too orange, because we are going to be correcting that later on in this very video or in this very tutorial. So paint or take your time while doing all this. And the reason that's why we first of all selected the subject is because during the painting process, we don't want color to spill to other areas of the background. That is why we have to limit the color during or by selecting the subject herself, and we try to paint and remain within the boundaries or the borders of the subject layer that we are trying to get even skin tones for. So reduce on the size and paint on these small areas. So make sure to painting on even the smallest areas that can be seen in the image by using a very small or smaller brush. So just take your time as you're doing all this. So I'm just going to paint quickly because I don't want the tutorial to be a long one, because most of you people tend to hate long tutorials and you have a very low attention span. So I'll just come and paint over the hand. So you can see, right, like doing this, we are having even skin tones for our subject. So don't forget any areas that have or contain skin tones. So I'm just going to come the lower part of the body and also work on the image. So I'm just going to come and paint just like that. So you can see that right now we are having even skin tones and the color cast is disappearing from the image. So reduce on the size and paint on a very small area. So in case you have made a mistake regarding the painting process, you can simply come and get the eraser tool. So you can get the eraser tool or press E on the keyboard to get the eraser tool. And with the eraser tool, make sure the mode is set to brush opacity and the flat 100%. I'm just going to simply erase the color from areas that I did not want to be affected by the color grading, especially these strands of hair, just like that. And come right there and also paint, yeah, like that. So press B for the brush once again in case you have missed out a given or particular area regarding the model's skin or subjective skin. So command minus to zoom out. Right now we have color graded the skin, but this doesn't look okay and natural. So press Ctrl D or can press Command D to deselect the active selection. So I'll just zoom in slightly and get the eraser tool and erase it from the extra areas. So in case it's too much, come the opacity, reduce on the opacity so that the color can look a little bit natural and realistic. So I'm just going to go with around 62, looks great for me. And in case it's looking too orange for your liking, simply come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Come to master, select reds and simply take down the lightness of the reds just like that. And that is going to reduce on the amount of yellowness or oranges from the skin tone. Then you're going to come and create a black and white adjustment layer. Change the blend mode from normal to multiply. Reduce on the opacity to add more contrast into the model's skin. So after that, you're just going to come and create another selective color adjustment layer. Come and select the blacks and come to where you see the cyans and simply make the scene look a little bit more cinematic, just like that. I'm just going to go with around 12. So depending on the look that you are trying to go in for as a photographer, before, after, now that it looks a little bit cinematic, we have another issue. The greens are too much and a little bit popping. So I'm just going to come to the greens of the image and play around with the magentas, especially in the greens, or let's play around with the yellows. Yeah, I'm just going to mute the greens a little bit by taking the yellow slider down. So before, after, then how are we going to get the image to look better? I feel like the skin tone's a little bit too orange. So I'll create another hue and saturation adjustment layer. Come to master, select the reds and just take this down a little bit more to around -7 before, after. So in case it's looking too warm for your liking, you can simply come and create a color balance adjustment layer and play around with the image. So you can come the midtones and slightly cool down the midtones to around by adding blues into the midtones, just like that. I feel like to around 2, that is okay. So you can see before and after. Now that the image has been edited and retouched, let's do a little bit of eye whitening. So in order to whiten the eyes of our subject or our model in this case, we're just going to come, and before we do all that, let's add a little bit of greens to the midtones. Let's go with around 2. 2 looks okay. So let's whiten the eyes. So just come to adjustments and come hue and saturation. Select master and simply come to saturation and drop down the saturation to around negative 78 or 79. Then press Ctrl I, or you can press Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. Then come and get the brush tool. The mode is normal, passing the flat 100%. Make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. So in case you have any other color apart from black and white, press D on the keyboard, or you can left click on the tiny swatches. So make sure white is the foreground color, and this time around you can now zoom all the way into the image and simply reduce on the size and paint on the eye. So you can even use the same technique for eye and teeth whitening. So in case you make a mistake during this process, you can simply correct that by switching the brush back to black, and black is going to hide the mistake from that particular area. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Control minus to zoom out. So this is what we have been able to achieve. So in case you feel like the greens are a little bit too much for your liking, you can simply create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Option Command E. Then for Windows, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, and you can come back to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And when you come to Camera Raw Filter, you can simply come to the color mixer and reduce on the amount of greens so that it can look better and a little bit more natural and appealing. You can even reduce on the saturation of the oranges slightly to around negative 2. Click OK. So you can see before, after. It is not overdone, and let's save this very image. So just come to File, Export, come to Export As, and it's going to open up the Export As dialog box right here in Photoshop. Make sure the format is set to JPEG, quality is set to the maximum, which is 7 for my case. Resample is set by cubic, sharper, and make sure in the color space you have checked Convert to sRGB and Embed Color Profile, and click on Export in order to save or export this very image. So click on Save. So this is how you can easily edit a photo in Photoshop from the start to the very end. And if at all you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe. If at all you have been watching and you are not subscribed yet to this channel, Ronix from Ronix Photography, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.